Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Aquarius Rising Africa with me, Chantelle. And I hope that you guys are all having a wonderful time. As you can see, it's getting pretty dang chilly around here. And Dennis and I were just having a little chuckle in the back there. He's all darkly dressed, and I'm all darkly dressed. So we're looking a bit like deactivating witchcraft here today. So welcome, guys. Nice to see you all in the chat, as always. Wenches with Wrenches, Midnight, Janice, Chiro. I hope I'm saying that right, Chiro. Sounds, and Lisa D, of course. Yay, so before I bring Dr. Dennis and Colleen, of course, before we bring Dr. Dennis on, just one or two little announcements here. Leo Zagami will be on tomorrow evening at 7 o'clock, which is the same time as now. He was supposed to be on last week, but unfortunately couldn't make it. And then two unexpected, or not so unexpected, but I was forgetting to put Jerry on the schedule this week. So Jerry Marzinski on Saturday evening at 6 o'clock, which is an hour earlier than now. And then Brock from Nasara 17 will be on as well on Saturday, and he'll be on at 4 o'clock my time, which is 3 hours earlier than now. So just keep an eye on the schedule, and you can just check it out. But I just wanted to give you guys the heads up in the meantime. So, yay. And it's interesting again, Dr. Dennis and I were just talking behind the scenes. 1st of May is actually a holiday yet. I didn't even know. I was just saying I went to the shops. I was all annoyed because they were closed. I was like, and the supermarket was way too busy. And I was like, why are all you people here? You should be at work. And it's May Day and it's a public holiday. We were just talking about the meaning of the 1st of May as well. So we're going to chat a little bit about that now as well. Very interesting show. So yeah, I'm bringing Dr. Dennis on. Ta-dam. Hello, Dennis. I'm so happy to see you. How are you?
How you doing?
I'm wonderful. Really happy to see you again. And I see we all dark here tonight. Deactivating witchcraft is most definitely a good topic for us.
Got our working clothes on, definitely here.
I like that, our working clothes, yeah.
I used to tell people about that, when I was into the paranormal investigation and doing a lot of that. We would dress all in black, and we would take bags out to the car in the middle of the night. People probably thought we were cat burglars or something. That was our working clothes, was black, basic black.
We all felt and sort of like crawling over walls and things. I love it.
Absolutely. We don't want to be reflective when you're in certain circumstances like that. Absolutely. Unless you're running down the road at night and on the highway, you do want to be reflective then, definitely.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little bit.
No, but not when you're hunting cryptids and being all stalkerish in the forest, right? Then you want to be very cat burglarish.
Absolutely, yeah, you got to kind of blend into the forest a little bit, just to fool those cryptids.
Exactly.
But, they're talking about today is May Day. Yesterday, last night, was one of the darkest evil nights of the year. That was Walpurgis night. And it's always April 30th. And it is a big celebration about some of the people we're going to be talking about today. Wishes. That's a big wishes holiday.
The wishes. The wishes.
Yeah, Satanists love it too.
But interesting, while we're talking about that, I just want to bring this into the equation because as I said, I didn't even notice. I mean, I know the 1st of May is a holiday over here, but I didn't even register that it was today. But 1st of May is a holiday, yeah. And that is because our Freedom Day is 27th of April, 1994. And that's when Nelson Mandela was elected president, right? So it's a public holiday, and it's Freedom Day in 1994. 27 April. Today, 1st of May, and I find it very interesting, and especially now that we know knowing all these dodgy connections, is Inauguration Day. So 1st of May has been celebrated since 94 as a public holiday, yeah, as Inauguration Day, or they call it Workers' Day in South Africa. In South Africa, Workers' Day celebrates the role played by trade unions, the Communist Party, and other labor movements in the struggle against apartheid. And we must never forget how instrumental Russia and the PLO, PLAN, SWAPO, all these guys were, Cuba, were very instrumental in supporting the African National Congress during apartheid. So these are all communistic, and even now, I mean, Ramaphosa's, you know, he's with Russia, boy, all the way. Following the first democratic elections in South Africa in 1994, May the 1st was inaugurated as an official national public holiday. So they're saying it's like with the labor movement, obviously, which is wonderful. Sounds all good, but it just makes
Seems
it's
like they tied a lot of
timing.
different holidays into one day. But you know, May Day is really supposed to be the celebration of spring. It's sort of the holiday for spring itself. It used to be, especially over here in the United States, it used to be a big day, but it's kind of fallen out of favor now. But it used to be, once upon a time, it was celebrated in schools with maypole dances and stuff like that, you know. And but you know, that's the sad thing about the history of Africa, Shanti, is that, you know, everybody's always wanted a piece of the pie of Africa. And that's never been good for it. Definitely, it's never good for you to do that with anybody. That happened with ancient Greece. You know, it was so divided, and it could only get together when there was a great force coming against it. You know, and it was very hard for them to do that.
You know, I think, okay, let's be honest. Every continent in the world has been colonized by some greater, more violent force than it. So we can't say it's only happened here. So everywhere, you know, long before the European colonizers came here, the Zulu people were actually from. The Zulu people the Zulus are the largest tribe in Africa. The Zulus are not endemic to Africa, South Africa. They come from Ghana. And they then came here, and long before the European colonizers came, the Zulus wiped out the Bushmen. So the Bushmen, or the Khoisan people, are really the natural owners. And they don't see themselves as owning the land. They see themselves as belonging to the land. So they're the natural stewards of South African land, basically. So we look at all of that, and then we see how, you know, one nation after the other is definitely colonized. And you know what, we must remember, Africa is heart. Europe, the West, is intellect. So it's like African people are heart people. They will welcome you with open heart. They will share with you. They will give to you. But on the flip side, if you piss them off, they get very violent and very vicious, which is what's happening. So the West with the intellectual knowledge came, right, and colonized in the sense that we can turn you into us, which was never really meant, rather than sharing intelligence, because African people are land people. They live with the land, they live off the land, right? So it's a very different way of living. But it's stuff we have to learn. And then we see, of course, the evil that's been committed here over time. And yes, America, Russia, China, everyone wants a piece of Africa. And the witchcraft here is horrific. It is absolutely terrible. And we're going to go more into that because we sort of did on one of the shows with Jesse the other day. We were talking a little bit about that as well. But we definitely want to go more into like the traditional African witchcraft. And it's disgusting. I'm going to do a piece on it tomorrow in Namibia. I mean, I've worked with the police a lot in Namibia, right? Looking for lost kids. And in particular, this one lost child, when I arrived there the one day, the child was gone missing. Long story short, spoke to the police and I could see what had happened. She'd been taken by a witch and body dismembered, and her private parts especially had been used. And that's what's happening now. They caught a guy there and showing you where he burnt the body of this child, explains how they've taken her private parts, given it to a certain guy who was paid $5,000, and that goes to the witch doctors. So that is current right now, and I'm pretty much researching and looking into that. So it is tragic. It's happening a lot. It's happening a lot. They're just grabbing kids left, right, and center, and especially their private parts, because that obviously they use for, I guess it really would be the equivalent of some type of sex magic or something. Yeah.
That's it. You know, that's very much true there. And, you know, Africa is a land of witchcraft, basically.
Yeah.
It runs very deep to the very essential veins of Africa itself. You know, when I leave your house, when I come to Africa and I leave your house, I'm definitely going to the Congo next, okay? The Congo is one place I've always wanted to go. But let me tell you a quick story since you mentioned witch doctors. There's a story of a witch doctor who took the heads of his enemies and shrunk them and hung them all on a long pole in his hut, you know. And this is what he would do with his enemies. And he says it's all right, you know, you can do that with your enemies. He said, but they still argue and whisper with each other every night on those poles in there. So, and there was another story about a witch doctor that supposedly threatened to turn his enemy, another rival witch doctor, into a hyena, a pet hyena, you know. And one day that, sure enough, this witch doctor shows up with a hyena, you know, leashed outside of his hut, made a pet out of it, you know. And they asked him, so, well, what about your enemy? Does, you know, your enemy bother you? He looked at the hyena and said, no, he doesn't bother me anymore. You know? So that's what happened to his enemy. You got a lot of fascinating stories like that in Africa, definitely, and all over the world for that matter. And here's the thing about it, Chantelle. The rise in witchcraft has never been greater than I have seen it. You know, I've been in this business a long, long time, and I have never seen the rise that you see now with witchcraft. You go on, and a lot of this is because of social media. You go on TikTok, you go on Instagram, and some of these other things. It's constantly one witchcraft thing after another. They're telling you how to curse people. They're telling you how to cast spells and all this stuff, and on and on and on.
On YouTube. I kid you not. They literally, it's scary what's available to people there at the moment. It really is. I'm very happy I don't have kids right now, I'll tell you what, because it would bug me too much.
It's getting deeper into our lives, whether we realize it or not. And like we've talked a lot about some of these entertainers and the so-called entertainment that they're engaging in is really ritualistic magic in many ways. And this ritualistic magic is being slipped down the door on us. We're not really realizing how it's not only just getting into media and social media and movies and stuff like that, but it's getting into the school systems and everything else. Yeah. And, you know, you talk about a lot of these missing children, you know, and a lot of missing people like that. A lot of this, I'm not saying all of it is, not all of it, but some of it, definitely there's a factor of some of these people going missing because of this witchcraft and stuff that's going on in the world today. And just like that last night, I was telling you about being the most evil night of the year. There's a lot of people that did not live through last night. Okay. And there are a lot of animals that didn't either because they got sacrificed. Okay. These blood sacrifices still go on. And you're talking about the witches and stuff like that. Yes, they do dance naked out in the woods, but that's just part of a ceremony. Okay. That's just sort of the icing on their cake, you might say. That leads up usually after the sacrifice, and they throw the blood on the crowd and all that. That's when they start disrobing and engaging in orgies. But that's part of the sex magic thing. Okay, so they take magic in many different forms. You have earth magic, you have mind magic, you have emotional magic that you use. That's where you see that a lot in voodoo, where they get very emotional and they dance and they allow these spirits to enter into them. That's emotional magic. And then you have the magic that is connected to the elements of earth, wind, water, and fire, and all this other thing. You have different types of magic, and they utilize a lot of these in their ceremonies. But the most powerful of all, supposedly, is blood magic, because it is usually very, very dark and goes that way. And like you're talking about these people being unalived and they're taking their parts. Here's what I've heard. Okay, it's like a lot of times when they get through with these sacrifices, they will actually sell parts of the human body that they don't drink the blood of or eat the flesh of. They will actually sell some of these parts to scientific, units and stuff like that. Yeah, there's a trade going on in this. And listen, I have seen this with my own eyes because I work in a hospital. Okay, listen to this. A lot of people don't realize this, but they take the placenta of births and resell that stuff.
Yep.
That's a big
Stem
business.
cells.
And
Stem
that's part
cells.
of a person. You know what I'm saying? That's part of you when you're born. And what else do they take that we don't know about? You have to wonder about that,
Exactly.
But
Yeah, I mean,
it's dark magic connected to this kind of stuff, especially the blood and body magic and stuff. And we've talked about that before. I won't get into that today, but that is a big essential part of this stuff, okay? But we've got to remember this witchcraft is getting into our lives. I've had some I had a show last night on Hunting the Shadows. It was Wicked Witchcraft Wednesday last night, okay? And I talked a little bit. That's because what leading into this show today. I mentioned this show last night. The interesting thing about witchcraft, I had some witches get mad at me, okay? I had one time, but what? What about us? What's going on with that? How do you? And I said, well, look, as a witch finder general, okay, I'm gonna say, hey, I was just talking about the wicked witches, okay, not the so-called good ones, but a lot of people live their lives, folks, by this witchcraft. A lot of people believe in this stuff, and I've said it before. And listen very closely. You got to remember, witchcraft is not a belief system. It's not a religion. It's a profession.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Just like if you're a dentist or a lawyer or a shopkeeper or a witch. Okay. It is a profession. There are beliefs attached to it, but there are many different kinds of beliefs attached to it. It's kind of like different denominations of Protestants, okay, in that respect. It is kind of like that. The different groups will claim the witchcraft, but that's part of the profession. Now, I want to stress something very important here, and we got to understand this before we get any more deeper into the subject. There is rootcraft. Rootcraft is different than witchcraft, okay? Witchcraft is a whole different ball, a whole different bag of tricks. Rootcraft is people who study plants and animals and stuff like that for medicinal purposes, to help people, to help with diseases or whatever's in. That's rootcraft, okay? Or root doctors, as we used to call these people. But some of them got tagged as being witches. That's just the way, ignorant people are. They don't really understand a lot of times what they're talking about. Their ignorance is very obvious on some of this stuff like that. These are not witches. They are root doctors. They are rootcraft. They're into that. But
Right.
we got to understand why there's a mistake here. Because a lot of this dark witchcraft uses plants like belladonna and nightshade and mandrake and so on and on and on to use some of their dark spells. That's why they got mixed up with the root craft. That's why the witchcraft got mixed up with the rootcraft. Okay, I can see how that happened, but people didn't take the chance to investigate it. But that's the way it goes. Anyway,
So everything just gets labeled. Sorry, I want to just say. So everything just gets labeled, and that unfortunately is where, in my opinion, is the dangerous area. Because if you, and yes, absolutely, in the days where people were burning women and men for making lotions and potions in the name of the Bible, that was probably not the right thing to do. So just because you make herbs and you work with nature does not make you a witch. And in fact, the witch term, actually in many civilizations, I guess, is termed a wise woman. So the wise women in a lot of the ancient civilizations were called the witches. But I think
they're the ones that, unfortunately, they got tagged as being witches. And they're
right.
really what we would call a traditional witch. But let me tell you what witchcraft is, folks. And we got to understand this. We got to keep in mind what this is. Witchcraft, magic, is the manipulation of reality. Okay?
Yes.
It's changing stuff. Okay? And whenever you manipulate reality, you can run into some bad trouble. Okay? Because what you are basically doing, you are going against the creation of the Creator. You're going against the laws of the universe and the laws of nature, because everything is set up to a certain pattern that it has to follow. This is what our Creator did when He was a creator. Okay, He created all this stuff to go along a certain way. And when you come along, what you're basically saying, I talked about this last night. What you're saying is, hey, I think I'm smarter than God. I think I know better than God. I think I can do it better than God. Okay, that's just the way. It's a very prideful thing. You know, we hear so much about pride. Pride truly comes before a fall, and this is the pride of mankind. You know, I don't like it that way. I'm going to change it to the way that I want it. Now, unfortunately, this happens with a lot of people when they fall in love and get married. The man thinks about the woman, oh, she'll never change, and the woman thinks about the man, I'll change him. Okay,
right.
That's the way that goes. Okay, a lot of marriages get into trouble because of that. Okay, and they don't take people for what. Here's the bad thing, and here's what we do. You know, and we see this through history with nations and peoples and families. We don't take things for what they truly are. We want to manipulate them. We want to change them to the way we want them to be. Why is our will so predominant over everything else? That's the narcissistic part of us, okay? We want it the way we want it, you know? That's like you hear a lot about, you know, parents complaining about their kids. They got 3 or 4 kids, and every different one of them wants a different kind of cereal for breakfast. You know? That's just the way it goes, okay? And that's the way we are, unfortunately, in many aspects. And that's why
I love that explanation, Dennis.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. I only had one, but when the cousins were around, I know what they felt.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
that's the way we are on a larger scale. We use witchcraft for that, and that's why God is against that so much, because it's manipulating His creation the wrong way. Okay, and just like what we're talking about with the root witches and the real witchcraft guys, the big difference in them was their intentions. Okay,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, if you had intentions to find the right kind of herbs and roots to help somebody, just like aspirin comes from the bark of a willow tree, aspirin, very well known by the ancient Egyptians, knew about it. That's nothing wrong with that. You know, God's pleased with that because He made that for that. He made plants to be used for this stuff. For
exactly.
look at dogs and cats, and I've watched them very closely. When they get to feeling bad, when they got a tummy ache or something going on, they will go eat a piece of grass. Ever notice that? They'll eat a piece of grass or some kind of herb or a little something that seems to settle their stomach and help their, a digestion or whatever the digestive system needs. Animals are smart that way. They go back to nature to get what they need. And there's nothing
Exactly.
wrong with that. God is pleased with that because he made it for that purpose. But when you manipulate it for the wrong reasons, and like the dark witches are doing, they're taking the plants and doing it for wrong, purposes to
But
poison
isn't
people and yeah.
we could argue there, Dennis, that the whole of the medical industry is witchcraft, because really, if you go back to ancient times, and again, I come back to the African people who are natural herbalists, natural medicine men and women. I mean, from when I can remember, my African friends on the farm that I lived were forever making herbs and like concocting things. And if there was a blister, it was that, and that was good for that. And if I was sick, I had that. I mean, my nanny knew exactly what to eat. So we seldom had any, and I mean, we lived 50 miles out of town. We seldom had any antibiotics ever. I mean, there were times we did for sure, like when you had your chicken pox or what have you. But my point is that in fact, I believe that everything we need actually comes from the earth. But because, of course, the way that things are now, a lot of that the natural stuff is already being destroyed and it's not available, or it's not available in the area. And they've made it that way over time. So that is kind of like, that's when the whole medical industry, the medical mafia starts pushing their stuff. And again, when we talk to people like Jerry Marzinski, who's an expert when it comes to mental health and literally taking on the medical mafiosa, he's got statistics on how destructive this stuff actually is. The side effects are suicide. Oh, all right. Just so if you commit suicide, that's fine. That was a side effect of taking your antidepressant.
See, that's where the big pharmaceuticals come in. They can't control that, see, and there's no money in it for them. It's all about money, power, and control. They can't keep you from going out in the woods looking for certain herbs. Okay, that's where they come in. They'd rather you take a pill. They'd rather you pay their money, their price for their little pill that does maybe the same thing, only with worse side effects than the natural stuff. But when these people were gathering roots and herbs and all that, they are healers. Okay, they are healing. Physical healers. They're not spiritual healers, although there is a lot of spirituality connected with that stuff. But right. I'm saying they were physical healers and all that. But now the dark witches were not about healing people. They were about affecting things for the way they wanted them to be. You could go to a dark witch. Let's say you fell terribly in love with this man and you wanted him above all else in the whole wide world. You could go to a dark witch and get her to make you a love potion, okay? You would slip this man in his food, and that would be it, okay? A lot of that went on, okay? But also they could give you candles to burn that would bring you money in, or bring you spirits into where you are. Whatever the situation is, they can make you candles, they can make you dolls, they can make you potions and spells and hexes and curses when they want to. They could curse somebody for you, just like that witch doctor we were talking about earlier. They can do some bad mojo on you, okay? They can, that juju they use, okay, can be very bad. So you have to be very careful on how you approach these things. But what these guys are doing, like I said earlier, they're manipulating the reality of what things the way they are, okay? If that man, I'm just drawing an example, if that man doesn't love you, really love you, or that woman, as the case may be, does not really love you, nothing on this earth you're going to do is going to really, truly get their love. Okay, you understand what I'm saying? Not the way you would really want it. Okay, all right. There's a bad side effect to this stuff too, folks. You got to understand that. Just like that medicine we were talking about, that people make, there are bad side effects to this dark witchcraft. Absolutely.
Absolutely. And, it's always, this is what karma is. Karma is not some new age fandangled word. Karma literally is cause and effect. So if you've done something that is against God's natural law, and it will always be actually the will of another for self gain, right? It's natural that is not going to be lasting, because nothing evil or based on fear, because any type of witchcraft is based on fear of not having, fear of not being powerful enough, fear of not having enough money, fear of not having the gifts that that person has that I think I don't have. It's all fear, fear, fear. And when we come back into alignment with God's light, we know that we don't need to steal anything from anyone. And that, witchcraft will manipulate everything to its power so that it can control a situation. But I think
Absolutely.
every,
Let me
I
answer
mean,
Tammy here. Yes, Tammy. Thi-
yeah,
Witchcraft does come with a very bad price. Uh,
it does. It's always,
that's the bad side effects I'm talking about. It has a dark price for it, and it always, listen to this. If I were to cast a spell or hex on Chantelle, let's say, if I wanted to get rid of her, I do whatever I wanted to her, I cast a spell on her, or hex her, or curse her. 90% of that's going to hit her. But listen to this very closely. 10% of it's going to come back to me. Okay. And the more darker it is, the more of that 10% I get back. Right. It's going to come back. It's going to bounce back. And it can be
amplified.
very bad, a very, very bad. And I remember hearing two warlocks talking about cursing someone. Okay. And here's what they said. The one says, yes, I can do this for you. We'll agree on this together, but also you got to agree to take the price of it, to take the fallout from it. You got to agree to take that too, because I'm going to get some of it back and you're going to have to share in that too. So they were making that agreement. Okay. That's the way this kind of stuff works. There's always a very bad price for this. And it can get you in different ways. In many different ways, it can affect you. But yes, it definitely is a bad price that you want to pay. And I'm gonna talk now about, let's turn the page here for a moment. Let's look at some wild stuff going on in this world right now, okay, with witchcraft. And I can call it witchcraft because the witchcraft that I'm talking about today is definitely tied into the satanic worship type stuff, okay? That's the craft that they're using for a lot of stuff that they do. Have you ever heard, Chantelle, of the Daughters of Darkness?
I have heard of them, but I don't know what they do.
The Daughters of Darkness are supposed to be the supreme echelon of the highest witches on the ladder, okay? They are the darkest witches of all in this world. They are the premier supreme coven of witches. They are called the Daughters of Darkness. And
Isn't
guess
there a
what?
song about them?
They supposedly work for the Illuminati and the Cabal, okay? They supposedly work for them. And here's what they can do. Here's the weird stuff. If I owned a corporation and I've got somebody competing with me, what's one way I can get rid of my competitor? What's one way I can get over him and make my product better than his? Well, I can try to outsell him. I can advertise, and guess what? I can employ witches to help me. Okay. And now listen, this is wild stuff to think about. This is going on in the corporate world. It's going on in government. Let's just say, Chantelle, you and I were competitors for a seat in Congress. I wanted to get rid of you so that I could get that seat. Witchcraft would be one answer for that. If you go back in time and history, you see a lot of this going on. Cleopatra supposedly employed witches. Marie Laveau was a well-known manipulator of this stuff. People went to her to get things done, supposedly. And that included
Yeah.
government officials. That included, corporate leaders and all that. This stuff is going on in the real world, folks. Okay. And the daughters of darkness are the supreme coven for this. And they supposedly work for the New World Order. There are, I don't know if you remember this, but I think when Donald Trump first got elected, there was a whole coven of witches that were hexing him. They were throwing hexes and spells against him to stop him and do stuff. This is a force that they bring upon. Okay, this is one thing. Say, okay, well, we did this with marketing. We did this with advertising. What can we do with the witchcraft? Where can we use it as well? This is part of the regime that they use. And the daughters of darkness are supposed to be the very best of this. And guess what? I've also heard they supposedly employ assassins that are dogmen and werewolves to get rid of people.
Yeah, I think you've been on a show with Jesse before, as if I remember correctly, but it wasn't on here. It was on another show, right? Jesse's a Botar.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I have been.
She was trained. It's she was trained to be the Queen Mother of Darkness, which is, I think, exactly what you're talking about. And then there are another 4 mothers. So it's the mothers of darkness, and it's so true what you say, because the Queen Mother of Darkness, which was her grandmother, would every night literally have communication with Lucifer, and then whatever Lucifer's instructions were then delegated to the other 4 mothers, who were then heading up each of the 4 quadrants. So that information would come through the Queen Mother, would then give it to the 4 mothers, who would then delegate it to the 4 quadrants. In America, actually, I do believe that was, and I'm sure not only there. But it's very interesting, and yes, it's true. It's true, everything you're saying there. I mean, it's the stuff that, wow, the stuff that you're talking about is very hectic.
The mothers of darkness are sort of the mothers over the daughters of darkness. They sort of answer to them. Now, mothers of darkness, right. You got to remember, the main supreme queen is standing in for the queen of witchcraft. You know who that is? Hecate. And this woman is sort of like the equivalent of the Pope. Only you would call her the Black Pope, I guess, because she's doing stuff for the evil side, okay, the dark side. And she is supposed to be Hecate's representative on Earth. Let's talk a minute about Hecate, okay? Hecate is the queen of witches. She was so powerful, even Zeus would not mess with her, okay? And she is also known as the 3-faced goddess. She has 3 faces. She has the face of a young girl, she has the face of a woman, and the face of an old woman. That's the 3 faces of the goddess. You hear a lot about this. Her symbol can be like 3 leaves. It can be 3 different types of things. That's her symbol. And I've seen this on a lot of witches' pots and cauldrons that they use. Her symbol is on there usually. And her symbol is the 3 leaves that go together. What we call that. Or it's a Celtic looking symbol too, by the way. But that's Hecate. Right. Now, Hecate has representatives on Earth, and that's where the mothers of darkness come in. Okay, they are sort of her, right. Her main tribe, her main, group of people that work with her, and they are over the daughters of darkness, supposedly. The daughters of darkness are a coven. They work together as a coven. The mothers of darkness can work independently of each other, but they still answer to Hecate.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Wow. Very interesting.
And, the interesting thing about Hecate is supposedly they worship 2 gods, okay? And this is where you're getting into the religious aspects of witchcraft, okay? Away from the craft and into the religion things that are behind it. There are 2 kind of religions mainly today that claim to be behind a lot or connected to a lot of this witchcraft and Satanism. And that is, one is the belief in the 2 gods, Hecate and the god of nature, which is the horn god, okay? You may have heard about the horned god. It has the horns, the antlers of a Sometimes it's depicted as the antlers of a goat, but most of the time it's depicted as the antlers of a deer. Okay, that is the horn god, the god of nature that they talk about. We also have another name for him, Pan. Okay, you've heard of Pan, and he is supposed to be the satyr of nature. Okay, he is the main representative of that, and the female side of it is Hecate. Okay, the three-faced goddess. But now there's another religion connected to this, and it's called paganism or Wiccan. Okay, now, let me tell you something about Wiccan. They lie about that a lot. They say, "Oh, Wiccan's been around for thousands of years." No, not so. Wiccan was invented about 100 and some odd years ago. I can tell you the guy's name. I can't think of it right now. He invented Wiccan, okay, and connected it to witchcraft. But the real oldest religion behind a lot of this stuff is the belief in Hecate and Pan, per se. I call him Pan because that's what he looks like. That's what his representative on Earth is supposed to be. And he represents the force of nature. And Hecate represents the force of magic in this world.
Right.
So that's why they worship those two gods. Okay.
Right. Work hand in hand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And here's the interesting thing about it, though. They approach these in different ways, but like I've talked about it before, there's a ladder that you can climb up in the witchcraft world, and that goes along with Satanism and vampirism, werewolfism. The whole thing is a ladder that you climb to acquire certain powers. Every bit of this, folks, you got to remember, is tied directly into the demonic or the fallen angels, or whatever name you want to give them in that respect. It's tied into the darkness of this world. That's why it's so dark. That's why it's evil. That's why you wouldn't want your daughter or your granddaughter involved in this kind of thing, because it requires evil things. Like I told you before, in order for you to become a true, honest-to-God, card-carrying witch, you got to either murder your brother or sister to get that. Pure and simple. That's just the beginning, okay? That's just what you do to begin with. And you see a lot of this in crime. You see a lot of this ritualistic murder going on. And we had to study that when I was in law enforcement. We had to recognize the precepts of this and why it was taking place and why they were doing these things. They would kill you, unalive you, and lay you out in a certain pattern and take certain body parts away from you. You know, like you were talking about that earlier about with this girl that disappeared, unfortunately. They do that. The body parts are very important, okay? A lot of this is ritualistic, and they feel that these are, and we call them the dark laws. In other words, there's certain things that they have to do, horrific, terrible things that they have to do in order to complete their rituals and plug into the power that they need to get things done, okay? And the next show that we have is what's going to lead into the next subject on this. Familiar spirits, okay? We're going to leave that for next time, okay? Because that's very interesting. But that's one part of this is you got to consider. And guess what? You don't have to be a witch to have a familiar spirit. We'll talk about that next time. But anyway, that's what goes into this dark witchcraft. Okay, the dark witchcraft, and it also goes into, it also runs into the science, what I call the dark science of witchcraft. It goes into alchemy, and goes into astronomy or astrology. It goes into these precepts. It goes into the natural laws of nature, the elements. It goes into you. It goes into the mind, the magic and powers of the mind and the spirit, the emotions. The list goes on and on and on, what all this magic is attached to. There are books written on this. They are called grimoires, by the way. They tell you a lot about this stuff, but they are also the bad thing. I've had a lot of people come to me over the years and said, do I need to read this grimoire? Do I need that one? And the Lesser Key of Solomon and all that. I said, no, you need to stay away from all of them. Okay? Because they have some bad stuff in there. Not just the bad juju they're talking about. They're talking about raising demons and stuff in this. You know, you don't need to mess around with that. Okay?
Yeah, it's very easy.
I had somebody accuse me of that one time saying, "Oh, Dennis, you're just afraid of us gaining more power." I said, "No, that's not what it's about. I'm afraid for your soul, because that's what it's
Right.
about. The darkness will get your soul. It will suck your soul out of you if you let it. And that's what this is all about, because this stuff requires you. Let me tell you this about witchcraft, okay? In order for you to perform witchcraft to its fullest extent, you must give it your 110%. You don't cheat. There's an old saying, you do not cheat the devil, or he'll ask an even higher price, okay? If you try to cheat the devil. You don't cheat witchcraft. You got to give it 100%. Caleb says it's like juggling grenades. That's a very adequate description. It's something you don't want to do. Definitely not. But you give it every bit of yourself. That's what's so dangerous about it. You know, you're not just putting a little bit of yourself into it. Just like if you were to make a drawing or paint a painting or write a story or do whatever. You put a little bit of yourself into it. Witchcraft, you put everything that you got into it. Your emotions, your mind, your body, your spirit, the earth itself around you, all this stuff goes into this witchcraft, to this magic.
It would, I mean, and it does. It sucks the living life out of you. And in fact, when on the show I did with Jesse a few weeks ago, we were talking about African witch doctors, and someone asked if I had seen them and what does it feel like. I would definitely, I know for sure 2 that were dressed up and 1 that wasn't dressed up. But the way that I can explain that energy, and I'm not talking about a sangoma, I'm not talking about a medicine doctor. There's a big difference, okay? I'm talking about a proper witch doctor that, like I was explaining earlier on, that kill the kids, that take their private parts, that destroy, etc. These guys are evil, but it's like there's a blackness in their eyes, but it's not like just black. It's not like black.
Well,
It's like
on the inside, whatever's on the inside, Chantelle, is going to show up on the outside, and it usually shows up in the eyes first. Okay, that always happens. But let me tell you this: we always think of witches as being old, ugly crones. Not so. Okay, forget that. Forget that Wizard of Oz thing. Okay, they can be your next door neighbor. They can be your best friend, and you never know it until you find out for sure the wrong way. Witches can wear 3-piece suits and door gowns. Okay, it doesn't matter to them. They are in our society. They are among us. They walk with us. They are us, and we have to be very careful how we approach that, and what people we get mad at us sometimes, or some people we interact with. That's the bad part about them. They can be anybody.
Well, if we're awake, we recognize them. That's the thing with being spiritually fit, is that you can literally smell them. And that's the thing. What I was saying about the witch doctors. It's not just like a black. It's like a spiral. And it's like a vacuum cleaner, almost like a vacuum. It has a sucking feeling. It really is. It's that. And if you're not aware, if you're not aware of how powerful these people's energy is, you're going to get drawn in there. And they do it with a lot of manipulation, nice words, charming gestures, good predictions, and before you know it, boom, there you are. And the next thing you're walking around as a black cat. Serious. Kid you not.
Yeah. Well, see, we have to understand the dangers of these things. It's not just what they can do to us, it's what they're doing to themselves as well. And these people can be like spiritual bombs going off. The ripple effect, it not just only affects them, it affects everybody around them. And this happens a lot, especially when you deal with cases of DDUI, which I call under the direct demonic influence. That's what it is. You see this happen. You see this written in the headlines of papers every day. Somebody goes in, shoots this place up or whatever, and they wonder why they do these things sometimes. I'll tell you why. There's a darkness in this world that is behind the human evil. here's what and we got to always remember about this. It's definitely the lesson of witchcraft here that we're talking about. The darkness of this world wants to hook up with the darkness in you. Okay. And it wants to activate that darkness. It wants to bring it out of you and enhance it more until the point where it overwhelms you. It's like a drug addiction in reverse. Think about that a moment. It's like drug addiction in reverse on you. And it's the way it's affecting your soul and everything. That's the way it works. And we got to remember that this darkness is already in us. And if we don't control that darkness, if we don't keep it where it needs to be kept, and it gets out of hand, that's when we run into a lot of trouble. And you see this happen with a lot of people. Somebody mentioned Jim Jones earlier in the program. Look what he did. Had everybody drink the poison Kool-Aid, okay? And they followed him. They did it. They volunteered. He didn't hold a gun to their heads. He convinced them to do this. Look at Hitler. Look at Mussolini. Look at all the people down through history that have talked people into doing these things. Look at Satan himself, who talked angels out of heaven. Okay? Don't trust everything that people tell you. Okay? Be very careful, because they may not have your own best interest at heart. They're waiting to hook up with that darkness in you. And we've got to understand the darkness is there. And that's why this program today is called Deactivating. Deactivating witchcraft. Okay? We want to deactivate it. We don't want it to hurt us or harm us in our lives. How do you do that? That's the main thing. How do you stop it? The number one effect you can have against dark witchcraft. Are you ready for this? Don't believe in it. Don't let it have power over you. Exactly. Okay? And the more you believe in it, the stronger you will allow it to become over you. Okay?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. And
energy goes where attention flows. That's so true.
Let me tell you this, okay? And I know what I'm talking about here, because I know a lot about the occult. Okay, listen to this. In order for me to cast a spell, I don't just think it in my mind and read it. I speak it out loud. I speak it out loud, and I give it what? Life. I let it become a living thing. Does you understand? A living force. Your words can be a living force. I can use my words to help heal you, Chantelle, or I can use them to hurt you. Exactly. They have a force. Okay? So does belief. So does belief. And the more you believe in something, the more power you can give it. So that's the number one thing that deactivates witchcraft for you, is the belief in it. If you don't believe in it, like I said, I've been cursed to death several times, okay? I'm still here, right? I'm still here. Why? Because I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it. I said, you're not going to hurt me. You're not going to touch me, because I don't believe you have the power to do that. I took that power away from them. That's what you call faith, by the way. That's another form of faith. That's an act of faith, okay?
Exactly. Faith over fear. Faith over fear, for sure.
And another way to deactivate witchcraft. Okay, listen to this. This is very important too. Another way to deactivate it is to have more of that light of you in you than the darkness. Like I said earlier, you got to keep that darkness in place. Witchcraft, dark witchcraft, is wanting to hook into that and activate that darkness. So in order for you to deactivate that witchcraft, you got to deactivate your own darkness first. Okay?
Exactly.
You got to understand that. It's very important. You got to deactivate your own darkness. And how do you do that? You put more light in you, more love, more goodness, more faith in you. That deactivates that darkness. And that tells this dark witchcraft from getting its hooks in you.
Can't. Because your vibration's too high then. That's exactly what we talk about, raising your vibration or raising your frequency. Can't get that. You up here now, not down here anymore. It's like you're lighter. You've lifted. You have a different frequency that it can't touch you anymore. And that's
Absolutely.
the beauty. Mm.
And what is the number one way that witchcraft gets into you? Through here and through the mind. You've got to get a hold. You've got to have a renewing of the mind. You've got to have a force of will of the mind to say, I'm not going to buy into that. I'm not going to believe that. I'm not going to let it bother me. Force of mind against this is another way you deactivate witchcraft and keep it from harming you. That's where, and I believe without a doubt, not only in your blood system, but in your mind is where the soul resides to a certain extent, okay? And you got to remember that is where the seat of your power is. Where's it at? In your mind, in your brain, okay? That's where the seat of your power is, okay? The seat of your willpower and the seat of your intelligence and the very seat of your soul itself, the very essence of who you are is there. And once you get a handle on that and control that as much as possible, then you have a leg up in the saddle, as I always say, to use a John Wayne term here. You got a leg up in the saddle on this, okay? You're ready to ride. But you got to get that mindset where it needs to be and say, hey, I'm going to use, listen, here's where you get magic in, okay? When you get it over magic, you say, I'm going to use what? Logic over madness, over chaos, over magic, and all this other stuff. All of this control that they're trying to use, this indoctrination they're trying to do. And that's what a lot of witchcraft is, folks. It's indoctrination against you, getting you to believe something, brainwashing you into believing that. And this is where the mind is so very important. That is another way that you deactivate witchcraft. And another important way, let's look at this, that you deactivate witchcraft is through faith in a power or source greater than you are from the outside. Okay? Because guess what? That's what's driving dark witchcraft, folks. Power from outside. It can be Hecate, it can be Pan, it can be whatever they believe. That's their power system they're hooking into. You need to hook into a greater power system. You need to hook into the power system of your creator, who is greater than all this. And what I said so many times before, the people in witchcraft don't get this, okay? Listen to what I'm about to say. You don't worship the creation. You worship the creator. You see where they're messing up, don't you? You see where they're going wrong with this, okay? That's the number one argument I got with them. You worship the creation. You're part of the creation. No, you worship the creator. And when you believe in the creator and you have faith in your creator, you have a relationship with him, you get things done. Jesus said you move mountains with his faith. Okay?
Indeed.
That's another way that you deactivate this witchcraft. Faith. Faith over fear. Faith with discretion and discernment. You got to learn this. This is the precepts that will safeguard you against the darkness of evil witchcraft.
It's totally faith. It really is faith. And, faith becomes your knowing. And then you walk around. It's like you know how to drive a car. You just operate within faith. And it's so true, because that is really where we're at right now. Dennis, and I think, we speak about this quite often. It's really about spiritual.
God wants you to get your ducks in line. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You were talking about that earlier about the high vibrational and all this. All of this is the getting your ducks in a line, as we used to say. Okay, get them lined up where they're supposed to. That's what God wants you to do. Okay, He doesn't want you to be at a disadvantage. He doesn't want this dark witchcraft to get up. Let me tell you something. Okay, always remember this: when it's dealing with dark witchcraft, whatever kind of darkness or evil you always want to have the advantage. and not be disadvantaged. You understand? Evil works that way. Evil wants to have the advantage over you. Reverse it. Reverse the curse. Okay? And say, I'm going to have advantage over the evil. I'm going to get it where I want it. I'm going to have... The best battles that you fight will be fought downhill. Okay? You want to be up the hill, fighting downhill. You don't want it the other way around, because you then are at what? A disadvantage. You know, never fight an enemy when the sun's behind them. Okay? You'll get blinded. That's not the way to work this. You got to be smart. You know, Jesus said that in the Bible. What did it say? He say to his disciples, said, "Lo, I send you out into the world. Be wise as serpents." Be smart. Don't be stupid. Be smart. It's not all about you, though. That's where faith comes. Faith is not believing in you. That's why we say faith in God. You got to be very specific when you get to this. Okay, it's faith in God, not faith in you, or the $6 million man, or whoever's out there. It's not faith in that. It's faith in God. Faith in God alone. That's what gets things done. That safeguards against the darkness, not just the dark witchcraft out there. There's a lot of other kinds of darkness out there. There's darknesses of jealousy and greed and gluttony. The seven deadly sins are darkness. They represent all the attributes of darkness that are out there. Okay, and by the way, a prince of hell rules over every one of those. Okay, that's the way it works. Because that's the way they push the envelope. That's their game plan. You know, I used to play a lot of football when I was younger, in my younger days. I was the captain of the football team for a while. We had plays that we did to get our opponents at a disadvantage, okay? That's the way you play the game. Always work with an advantage. Always try to come in from that way, because you'll come out better. God wants you to do that. God doesn't want you to work at a disadvantage. He wants everything good for you. And he wants you to win out against this darkness. He doesn't want you to fall victim to it. What does the Bible say very plainly? God wishes that no one should perish, but that all should come to knowledge. How very true that is. Yes, there is white witchcraft, Caleb. I'm going to tell you something about white witchcraft. You're still manipulating reality. I don't think it's good in a way, because you're still going against the precepts of your creator. It's not falling in line with what God has done. Any kind of witchcraft is usually not good, whether you want to call it white, black, gray, or whatever color you want to give it. You're still manipulating reality. And that's never a good thing, because you're going against what your creator has set up. Don't work against God, folks. Work with him. Don't ever work against God. Work with him.
I agree with that 100%. And I see we just hit an hour, but I actually have a question for you. We understand, obviously, witchcraft, spell casting, candles, blood, blah, blah, blah. There's different kind of ways to operate like in witchcraft, right? Mm-hmm. Would you say that manipulation, let's say, of a spouse, one spouse to another, for example, that sort of thing, or that lying, deception, I mean, you know, we're talking blatant human shortcomings, right? Would you consider that as a form of witchcraft, or would you only consider actual spell casting as witchcraft?
Well, like I said earlier, witchcraft is manipulation, and it can run along many different lines. It can be not just casting spells, making voodoo dolls, or making potions, or whatever. It can run along many different lines. And some of the most dangerous witchcraft is the witchcraft of the mind. And that's where you go in and start manipulating people by playing mind games with them, or we call it
Exactly.
gaslighting people. Yeah, you gaslight people. You can play mind games with people. That is a form of what we call mind magic. Okay,
Yeah.
just like a magician can get you to believe things that are not true. He can show you a card trick. It can be mathematics or it can be something else, but it can still trick you. And you say, "Oh, how'd you do that?" You know, he's playing with your mind, okay? Because this is part of an illusion. This is what this illusionary stuff is. And that's what's so dangerous about some of these other things we talked about, werewolves, shapeshifters, vampires, and all that. They are forcing an illusion upon you. If you meet me and I'm a vampire, Chantelle, you're going to think I'm the prettiest thing you've ever seen. You're going to really be attracted to me, not only sexually, but intellectually as well. You know, why? Because I'm putting off that glamour to get you to do that. I might look all pretty bad if you saw what I really look like. You would be very repulsed by me. But I'm not, that's not the way I play the game. I'm not, and guess what I'm doing here? I'm doing a form of mind magic and manipulation on you. That's not good.
Exactly.
Whenever you do somebody that way, I don't care what your motives are, they're usually not good because you are getting something over on that person. You're using that person. Okay.
You're making a conscious choice to manipulate a situation.
Yeah.
Rather than, I mean, it could be, I don't know, you got caught stealing, maybe. Let's use that example. So instead of saying, yes, I did steal and I'm sorry, I'll give it back or pay it back, whatever, you choose to maybe continue to manipulate the situation. So that in itself is I don't know if I'd call that witchcraft, though. That's what I'm saying. That's manipulation and absolute, if we just look at the world that we're living in, right? I mean, we're ruled by a bunch of narcissists. We are controlled by narcissists who have no idea what it is to feel a heart emotion, because they're completely psychopathic. And yeah, so that's how they operate. Yes, I'm not talking about the covens and witches that will back them up and do their thing. I'm also just talking about people in daily life. In the office, are terrible in there. I have clients who I speak to on a daily basis living.
You hit the nail on the head, Chantelle.
Guys, I mean, I've got swim after session after year and what goes on in that world, right? I mean, it's like there's different ways of controlling, of gaining control over someone, and that would definitely be with words, not just telling them what an idiot you are, how ugly you are, but rather to try and win people over through lies or cover your ass through lies, that sort of thing. That would not be witchcraft, right?
Well, that's what, somebody once said, that the most highest and meanest form of witchcraft is using people. Okay, that's what it all comes down to. And you know what? If you use somebody, you don't love them. You really don't love them person. You just love what you want. That's what it really boils down to, what you want. And you think that you know the best of everything. Or that you think you're the smarter than that other person. Whatever the situation is, it's a very narcissistic way to be. And let me tell you the worst thing of narcissistic people is they are self-destructive in the end.
Totally.
Self-destructive, yeah.
But they also don't any different, and even though I say that, but I'm back. We get to a certain point where we realize that we have to heal. We have to take responsibility for our actions, right? So if you understand that you have problems with addictions and it hurts your family and it hurts your marriage or whatever it might be, You've got to take responsibility. You can't keep blaming your alcoholic father for the rest of your life. Yes, did he treat you badly as a child? Absolutely. But as a man now of 30 or 40 or a woman, whatever it might be, it's your responsibility to heal from those wounds. And I think that that's what I'm saying. Therein lies the difference. I don't think many of these actions that people talk about narcissistic abuse, I don't think a lot of the narcissistic people even realize they're being narcissistic. Yes, you can see in the result as an outsider looking in. But I think there's so many people who, and as Jojo says, hurt people, and they're going to lie and manipulate to get their way out of a situation because they're so scared of getting in trouble, whatever that might be. But at some point, we have to realize we must take responsibility. And that's what I'm saying. A lot of people get accused of being witches, and when I don't believe they are being witches or whatever it is they are, I just think they are hurt people who are reacting from their wounded place. That's what I'm saying.
That's very
I don't know.
true. And you know, the prisons are full of people like that. You go to ask somebody in prison, what you do? Oh, I didn't do it. I wasn't me. I got blamed for it. I didn't do it. We're always narcissistic people. The very bad thing about narcissistic people is they blame everybody else for what they've done.
Yeah, they can't take responsibility. And I agree, in prison, I mean, of course, that is like obviously the devil's haven. When it comes to sucking souls and places like that, So, I mean, this world is there's a lot of hurt people and a lot of wounded people. And, yeah, I'm not sure how to, I would like to say, let's just turn a light on one day and everyone sees the light. But I think we've got a way to go. But yeah, Dennis, I mean, interesting times we're living in.
God has said many times, I choose the weaker vessels to accomplish the things that I want to do. Our Creator knows our weaknesses, but He also knows our strong points, And sometimes we don't realize that about ourselves, what our strong points are and what our weaknesses are. And we need to understand ourselves better. Let me put it this way. I need to understand myself more than I need to understand you. Okay,
Yeah,
that's the way we need to look at
it. Yeah.
Because I may not can see your heart and see what you're up to, but I can see my own self, my own motives, and understand these things. I need to understand why I do things, and why I have weaker points, and why I have stronger points. But that's the way it goes. Narcissistic people are blinded by that. It's always your fault that they're messing up, or there's something's going on. It's always you. It's not them. And they're always, we call that transference of blame. They're always transferring the blame on somebody else for the things that they do, no matter how bad it is. That's just like Hitler killed 6 million people, but he blames it on the Jews. Who killed those people? Hitler did. Okay, that's the way that works. Okay, folks. People just, and when you start transferring the blame on other people like that, what are you doing? You're trying to excuse whatever it is you're doing. You're trying to give an excuse for it. We need to own up to our own responsibilities. I'm gonna tell you what. If you do something to me today, Shanty, really do something bad to me, that's not my fault. That's your fault. Okay, because you did that. Not me. You did that. Maybe I deserved it. Okay, but still, you're the one that did it. Okay,
right.
But if you blame me for it, you're transferring the blame on me, and that's not right. That's lying against me. That's doing a disadvantage to me. But that's the way narcissistic people work, and they are some of the most. And I've said this before. I say it again. Some of the most dangerous people walking this planet are narcissistic people, because they have no feeling for you. They don't love anything but themselves. And they will excuse anything they do. I killed 6 people, but I didn't get a pony when I was a little boy, I did it for that
Yeah,
reason. Oh.
I agree, and I think that, when it gets to that stage of being totally sociopathic and psychopathic and narcissistic, I mean, that's obviously reached another level. But it's, for me, really, it starts with all of us taking responsibility. And this is, we've got to begin somewhere. And, for me, God is the truth, the devil is the lie. It's that simple. So you get to be, you make a choice. What is the truth or what is the lie? Or, in little things, maybe the bigger things, you don't even know the answer right now. So don't worry about that. The little things that you do know the answers to, or you can take action on, that's what you do. And God will open everything else after that, as you follow your path. There's no doubt in my mind. But I think, I look at people as a healer as well. I speak with a lot of people, and I have empathy for them all when it comes to these things, because you speak to a narcissist, and even a pedophile, right? And you hear their story. It's heartbreaking. But that wound, the only person that can heal that wound is them. That's the only person that can heal that wound is them. And that's where the change and the shift is going to, takes place. So we take responsibility and we realize, we have to be the creator of our life now, of our life experiences. Yeah.
I've said that before in the past about some people, the way it goes, they can pass you going up the ladder, okay, and never realize you're holding the ladder. You're the one holding the ladder for them, okay, but they don't care as long as they go up the ladder. And by the way, you may be the one to put the ladder up there to start with, okay? But they don't recognize that, they have and that's very irresponsible on their part. But not only that, but it is very disrespectful, and that is what narcissistic people are. They don't care about being, respectable to you. They don't care. They don't care. They don't have any perception of perspective on that. They don't care. They have no empathy. As long as they get up the ladder, they don't care how many people they step on going up that ladder. Okay, and that's the bad part about it. But we have to watch out for those people. Like I said, they're very dangerous. They're very self-destructive too in many attributes, and they will take you with them too. By the way, we've seen that happen a lot of times in the past. These people, when they implode and try to pull everything in there with them. When they go. That's the way they are. They're very destructive. They're destructive not only into relationships, but every other aspect of life around them. That's what makes it so very bad. And that sums up what witchcraft is to a certain extent. Witchcraft is that narcissism that says, "Hey, I can change things the way I want them to be." What makes you God? Who died and left you God? That's not your job to do stuff like that, but that's the way they look at it. And they're very narcissistic in that attribute. And we have to understand that is what fuels a lot of dark witchcraft, a lot of darkness in this world, not just witchcraft. It fuels a lot of darkness. Yeah.
Yeah, it does. It does. It does. I would say I absolutely agree with you there. That's what fuels it. It's those fears that the narcissist has of not having anything. That fear is so great, that their desire for power is so great, because they feel so disempowered within themselves that in fact they become oftentimes monsters. It's true. Anyway, don't want any of those around us, do we? No, thank you. Just transform that. Anyway, Dennis, I'm not sure if there's anything else. I know we're kind of getting close to our closing time.
Well, I would like to give everybody a warning today, and we need to understand. And even Jesus talked about this in the Bible, and I'm going to leave you all with this warning today, and we got to be very careful about this aspect. Jesus said, whatever you're going to do, keep it to yourself. Don't let your plans be made known. Keep your business to your own self, because there are things listening and watching out there. Okay. And so it's best not to give yourself away for these things, because they will try to impede you. They will try to work against you. And I'm not talking about just spiritual things. There are people out there listening and watching you all the time that may have very hateful eyes, as my mother used to say, had hateful eyes towards you. They're listening to you. They're jealous of you, or whatever the situation is. Don't give them ammunition, folks. Okay. Try to keep as much of the ammunition away from them as possible. That's to your benefit. I'm telling you this for your benefit, not theirs. Okay. They're watching you and they're listening. So be very careful who you talk to, who you trust, and who you do in many aspects that way. Because there are some people out there that are not definitely in your corner or on your side. Okay. And I want to leave you with that warning today. Word to the wise.
Thank you, Dennis. I appreciate you. And I'm just going to pop up your banner quickly. Where is it now? Do you want to just give people the heads up as to what your actions will be in the next few days?
Oh, well, tomorrow night I'll be doing Paranormal Point of View. We'll be doing maybe some book reviews and some movie reviews and stuff like that from the paranormal aspects of things. And then Monday night, I will be doing The Road Less Traveled, my good friend Gerald Fountain. We always have a fun time on The Road Less Traveled. And then next Wednesday night at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, all these shows are 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, will be another edition of Hunting the Shadows. I'm going to have a very special secret guest on there next week. You don't want to miss it. And my books are available on Barnes & Noble and Amazon. I also have by the way, I've reactivated my cryptid group, which is now called Southeastern Cryptid Investigations. If anybody wants to join that, I may have to send a membership to you too, Chantelle. Anyway, just in case you're ever over in this neck of the woods, you can join in the hunt with me. Okay.
I'm going on that hunt with you.
Yeah, there you go. We'll get that portal going. We got to get that portal going, definitely.
I'm finding it, yeah. Make no mistake. Next thing, I'll be sitting next to you, Dennis. We'll surprise all the viewers. I'll be right next to you, and they won't know how I got there.
Yeah, there you go. I'm still waiting for Elon Musk to send me that private jet, maybe. You know.
Oh, he's not going to send it. He's not going to send it. We got to find that portal. And anyway, that jet is way too much of a, what do you call it? Bad footprint, carbon footprint, right? So we'll rather find the portal, Dennis.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's what somebody was talking about. Taylor Swift the other day. She's really going around the world, leaving all of her exhaust fumes behind her.
Taylor, isn't she supposed to be leaving America because Donald Trump is president or something?
I heard that one time, but I don't know. They threaten to do that a lot of times. I say we ought to open one airport for them so they can specially fly out. Yeah.
It's so funny. I mean, seriously. Anyway,
but you want to do a little word of prayer here before we close up?
Yes, absolutely.
A dark subject. And let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we humble ourselves before you today, and we ask that you place your blessings upon Chantelle, upon her in every way that she needs to be blessed, Lord God Almighty. That you bless her program, that you bless her as a healer, that you give her the light and love to walk in against the darkness. And we ask that you do this for everyone listening to this program today, that you will heal their bodies, heal their minds and their spirits, preserve their souls against the darkness of this world that seeks to encompass us. We know you can do this. We know that you can give us your peace, power, and protection, and the protection and guidance of your Holy Spirit. We ask all these things, as always, in the blessed name of Jesus Christ, and by the power and blood of Jesus Christ. We ask these things be done. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, we humbly pray. Amen. So
you,
next
Dennis.
time, familiar spirits.
How do I spell that?
Familiar, Famillar.
Okay, so
Familiar
like as in familiar.
spirit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I will have that on for next week. So join us for the fun here on Arrow again on Thursday next week. We talk about familiar spirits.
Mhm.
And then tomorrow night, I shall see you all, or tomorrow morning for you. I've got a Friday date night with you guys and Leo Zagami. So join Leo and myself tomorrow. Joanne, you are such a beautiful honey bun. Thank you so much. You see, I get spoiled. Dennis, we get spoiled on this channel by beautiful Australians. And then on Saturday, again, Brock from Nasara 17 is coming on at 4 p.m. GMT +2. And Jerry Marzinski will be on YouTube. If those of you watched him last time, you gotta love Jerry Marzinski. I adore him. He's so hilarious. If he had to, honestly, he forgets everything. And he was supposed to take his wife somewhere that day. So in the middle of the interview, she walks in like, "Where are you?" He forgot he had to take his wife somewhere. So he kind of left us mid-sentence. But he'll be back on Saturday, continuing his sentence. Jerry. Okay, guys. Thank you so much. And yes, thank you for supporting my channel. I appreciate you guys so much. God bless you all. Join the membership. We're doing the Krida Mutwa African Symbols of Goodwill. I'm loving doing it. Actually, that's for members and Patreons. Dennis, we're going to be doing stuff with you. We're going to be doing stuff with Mr. Zagami as well. So watch this space, everybody. God bless you all. And it's very, very cold here. You can see very witchy here tonight. Dennis and I looking very dark. I'm looking a bit like Dodgy Dora in the dark corner. But I'm not that dark, I promise. Dennis, thank you so much. Anything you want to say after I've been babbling again?
Pleasure as always.
Thank you, Dennis. God bless everybody. See you tomorrow.